102.2 Auckland. The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Phil Goff.
Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, is with us this morning. G'day to you, Phil.
G'day, Wammo.
Now, Phil, it sounds like you've got a few unhappy MPs in Christchurch. Leanne Dalziel has said that she's had a guts full of being patronised by people involved in the disaster response, and she's sick of being kept out of the loop with what is actually going on in more of an official capacity in Christchurch.
Yeah, we've indicated that we'll do whatever we can to assist with the recovery in the earthquake. We don't want to make party politics out of this, but it is really important that MPs who are on the front line having to answer questions on a day-to-day basis from constituents are kept in the loop, and it's important that those communication lines are open. We've worked to help sort some of those issues out. I've appointed Clayton Cosgrove as our shadow spokesperson on the earthquake recovery. That means he'll be liaising on behalf of our team in Christchurch with the government and with the government agencies. We want to be part of the solution. We certainly don't want to contribute to the problem, but to be part of the solution, it's really important to have that flow of information.
So are you, by and large, happy with the response so far from the government?
Look, I'm being very, very careful not to be critical. I know that there'll be mistakes, there'll be problems along the way, and we don't want to snipe at the government over that. We just want to make sure that they get it right. So we'll be engaging on a constructive basis. Look, I think, there's been a huge amount of work done down there, and I think of the Ryan contractors, the water supply engineers. I've talked to them. I've seen them hard at work there, getting those utilities back into gear, the people running the welfare centres, Sally Army, the St John's. Look, let's not be critical when we see so many people putting in such a magnificent effort. And government's got to come to the party, and I've said in Parliament, I think if anything, government will need to err on the side of being generous in helping that recovery process. So, look, there might come a point where we are critical of the government in some way, but we're not setting out to be. We're setting out to try to make sure that things can be as good as they can.
What do you make of the urgent legislation to rebuild Christchurch, to remove some of the roadblocks to reconstruction?
Well, again, we've had discussions with the government about that. The legislation will probably come in tomorrow, and what's important, I think, is that you have a streamlined process so that what needs to happen urgently can happen urgently. But with any such emergency legislation, you've got to make sure that while things are streamlined and happen as quickly as they possibly can happen, that you don't override people's rights and you don't rush into things and make bad mistakes. I know some of my colleagues like Brendan Burns is very concerned that where historic buildings can be preserved, they are rebuilt and preserved rather than simply put the bulldozer through them. So it's finding a balance between those two things, but we'll work in with what the three local councils in the area need, and again, we'll just be making sure that while we streamline the process, that people's rights aren't overridden in a way that's unacceptable. It's a matter of balance. What
about EQC? Do you think EQC needs another looking at? People are having issues with the billing side of things where say plumbers and electricians can't go and bill EQC direct. The customer, in fact, has to pay the bill and then recoup the costs.
Well, I think they need to look at how they make it as easy as possible for the people that have suffered losses without opening the EQC up to people who might submit exaggerated claims. Again, I think you've got to have a balance there. You don't want to create a bureaucratic nightmare. At the same time, you need to make sure that, look, overwhelmingly, the vast majority of people are honest, but there'll always be somebody that tries to rip the system off. There still has to be safeguards, but let's not get bogged down in a bureaucratic mire in terms of doing the job.
I would have thought it would have been safer for EQC if businesses like plumbers and electricians were billing them direct.
Well, that could well be. I haven't looked at the specific details on that, Wammo. Let's just find the most reliable and the most effective way of doing it, and that's something that EQC needs to work out with the government and with the people who are needing that help. But when people want to get a job done, they want to get it done. They don't want to hold things up. In fact, you can't afford to hold things up when the tradespeople working down there will have huge demands on them.
Yeah.
There's a big job. It will stretch out over, it won't be weeks, it'll be months, maybe even years. But let's get the thing done so people can get their lives back together as quickly as possible.
Right, Phil, on from the earthquake to a rather bizarre issue over the past week. There is pressure building on the Security Intelligence Service to explain how a serial CV faker was given a top secret clearance. Certainly there needs to be some answers here.
Well, I think there are three agencies that you need to look at. The first is the recruitment agency, Momentum, that was paid to do a job to recruit and advise on the appointment of somebody suitable for the position and check out their qualifications, their background, their work experience and so on, that clearly hasn't done the job. They got paid, but they didn't do the job. Secondly, the New Zealand Defence Force needs to have had its own checking system in place, and clearly that wasn't up to scratch. And thirdly, you've got the Security Intelligence Service. This is a position that involves dealing with sensitive information, and their job is to check out the backgrounds of people as well to ensure that they have got security clearance. And it's pretty hard to see that any one of those agencies did the job in the way that they should have. There should have been a belt and braces situation there where all three had done a reasonable checking job, and yet still this man managed to slip through the nets with exaggerated claims and some say an employment background that wouldn't have withstood scrutiny.
Have you heard of anything else like this ever before? I mean, it's rather extraordinary.
Well, unfortunately, it's been rather too common. There was the guy that ran for the head of Maori television, the Canadian guy, Davey, I think his name was, that made claims that couldn't be sustained. There was Mary Ann Thompson at the Prime Minister's Department who claimed a doctorate and didn't have one. That should have been relatively straightforward for the bureaucrats to check out. And there was the case of that psychologist, Linda Astor, who was transgender psychologist who didn't have the qualifications she claimed, which led to a person being released into the community who then subsequently murdered his partner. So, I think right across the board we need to make sure, particularly where recruitment agencies are concerned, they need to do the job thoroughly. If there are referees there, they need to check out with the referees. They need to check out with previous employers to make sure that what is claimed on a job application is bona fide.
Hey, thanks very much, Phil.
Okay, thanks very much.
Cheers.
Catch you later, mate.
Bye.
Cheers.
Leader of the Labor Party, Phil